we're going to go through and discuss custom stored procedures here and how to implement custom stored procedures. A lot of you want to essentially have stored procedures that you have available in your database, and you would like to be able to call them and display the data for them. So what we want to do is set up a application where we can call a custom stored procedure and retrieve records to display. And we also want to pass a parameter to the stored procedure. So for example, here is a screenshot of something that we want to create. If you have a drop down with the list of countries, and if you select a particular country, we want to display all of the customers from that country. So let's go through and look at an example here. Here's an example of something that I already created just now. And if I were to able to basically say Germany, it goes ahead and retrieves the, oops, okay, I must have closed that application. That's why it's not working. Okay. Oops, did I not set that up? Okay. Well, anyway, I don't have to worry about that because that was just an example that I wanted to show you. But we'll go ahead and actually create this application, so we'll have it actually working here and go from there. So what we want to do in terms of doing this is the following. What is our strategy in order to be able to call a custom stored procedure? There are 3 steps to this thing. One, we want to define a stored procedure, obviously. And in the case of that stored procedure, we want to essentially return a data set, and we want to make sure that it takes a parameter, in this case, the country parameter. The second thing that we want to do is we want to create a page to display the results, and we're going to be creating the ASP code for that to have a country drop-down as well as an ASP::grid view for that. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Brooke. I want to show you the full screen here. And then finally, the third thing that we want to do is do a code customization, which essentially then calls the stored procedure and then passes in, the country drop-down, and then also displays the data in the grid view. Now, because we are using an ASP::grid view over here, we have to do a little bit more work than what is automatically done for you as part of an IronSpeed Designer table control here. So we'll have to handle the selected index change, for example, in terms of when the value changes, we want to go ahead and make the stored procedure call again. We have to handle the init method in order to essentially display all of the country. We have to handle the load method and so on. And same thing with the grid view as well. And if there are multiple pages, we want to make sure that we handle the indexing for the page as well. What I did was I went ahead and created a simple stored procedure in Microsoft SQL Server. And here's how the stored procedure looks like. I can show it to you in SQL Server as well if you so choose to. Here's how the stored procedure looks like, and I've added it to the Northwind database basically. And the stored procedure basically says it takes a parameter, P country, which is an nvarchar field of 100 characters. And then all I do is check to see if the value is blank. If it is, then it displays an error message or raises an error. And the raised error, effectively, you have to make sure that it is over number 10 in order to it to be a fatal error. Anything 10 or below is considered just a warning in SQL Server. So if you raise an error which is 11 or more, it'll be a fatal error. And then so if no country is specified, we just raise an error. Otherwise, we just do a simple query, select star from customers where country equal this parameter. And this will allow you to effectively retrieve all the customers and return this as a data set. So that's our simple stored procedure. And of course, you can have as complicated a stored procedure as you like with any additional parameters that you want. Sorry about that. The next thing that I want to do is I want to go ahead and now create a page to display the data from this stored procedure over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a file new page. We're going to start off with a blank page. Let's go through to my IronSpeed application. And what I'm going to do is click the new button, select page here. And this will allow me to create a new page. I'm going to go through and select a blank page at this point in time. And I'll just give it a name of my page. And I don't want any header, footer, menu control, or anything like that. And I'm going to go ahead and press finish. And I've got a blank page over here at this point in time. Now, if I switch over to the HTML view, I'm going to see that there is some level of HTML that is automatically created for me over here. And what I want to do is add some additional controls over here. So I'm going to go ahead and create a little bit of space for myself between the form tag effectively and the body tags over here. And I'll be able to then add my own .NET controls over here. So the first control that I want to add is I want to go ahead and add a drop-down list, which we're going to use for country. And so we'll go ahead and add that. And the second thing that I want to do is add a ASP colon grid view. And indent this thing so that it looks nice. So drop-down list, very simple. There's an ID called country run at server so that I have control of it in the server. I can initialize it, I can change it, and so on. Use a grid view, call it my grid, and then I have a function called page index changing whenever the next button is pressed. We want to display the next and previous buttons if they are if there's more than one page, and the first page index is 1, and then I've specified certain styles for this to make it look very similar to my my application. So if I save this and build, what will happen is my page code behind is going to be created at this point in time because I've built it, and then I can switch back and now do the next parts of this code customization. What are the next parts? So I've already defined the stored procedure. I've defined the .NET controls on the page. Now I need to do the code behind for each one of these things. So the first and foremost thing that I need to do is I have a country drop-down, and I need to do certain things with that country drop-down basically in order to handle all of the things related to that. What do I need to do? I need to have an init method that will call somebody back if the value is changed. I need to load the database, load the data from the database, and I want to basically handle the selected index change for that so that I can load the data grid at that point. And again, I'm going to copy this thing and paste some of these things here. So I'm going to switch over to my code behind file for this particular page. I'm looking at section 1 over here, and I also have section 2. I will paste this at the end of section 1. So here's end of section 1. And I'm going to go ahead and paste these functions. So let me go ahead and paste all of these different functions, and I'll then walk you through with what these functions actually do. And then finally, the selected index change. So if you look at what these functions are doing are the following. The first function, and these are all standard .NET. There's nothing specific to Iron Speed Designer over here. These are the handles country.init is an event for every field that is available to you in your on your page. So country is a drop-down list, and I can specify an event called init and handle that event. I'm setting the auto postback flag to be true over here so that I get notified whenever a value changes there. Next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a load method, and again I've specified a standard .NET event called load. And in this thing, what I'm going to do is here is where I'm going to use some Iron Speed Designer generated code here. I have a customers table that I have in my database, and there's a record for that. So what I'm going to do is read the list of countries that are available in the customers table. Now, I could have a country table as well that I could populate, but in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read all of the customers' record and then only display the countries from the list of from that list. Now, in some examples, this may not be more efficient. Let's say you have 1 million customers. You don't want to scan through all million of the customers to load the country, so you may be better off having a country table. But for the purpose of this argument, of this code customization, We're simply going to read it from the customer's record. What I'm going to do here is say, hey, listen, if it's already loaded, no need to load it again from the database. So I'm going to check very quickly and return back. Then I'm going to create an order by clause in order to essentially order the list of countries in a particular order. In this particular case, the name of the country itself in ascending order, so that when I populate it, they already show up as pre-sorted effectively, so that Albania shows up before Zimbabwe, for example. And then I'm going to go ahead and call get records, which is a standard data access layer function that is generated for you in ISP Designer. I'm going to pass it an empty where string, implying that I want to read all of the customer records, and I'm going to pass my order by clause. And then for each item that I read, I'm going to create a new list item with the country name both as the value as well as the internal index for that. And if it's not already in the list, I'm going to simply populate it in that drop-down list. So at this point in time, what I've done effectively is, and then finally I add one more item called please select as the first item at the top. So if I were to simply save and run this thing, I'm going to simply see a little country drop-down with all of the values that are populated at this point in time. Finally, I have a selected index change which calls a function that I have yet to write called load grid control, basically. And this is the function that we're going to specify, which will call the custom stored procedure. So let's go ahead and find that function and write it. We're going to copy that function again from our presentation over here, paste it over here, and see what it does. Okay, so let's look at what load grid control does. Load grid control does a couple of different things, basically. One is it sets allows paging so that you can essentially have, if you have more than 10 records or more than 100 records, you're going to see, next button here. I'm going to call a function called custom stored procedure, which returns essentially a data source, an object for the data source for the grid, and I'm just going to assign it. And finally, I'm going to essentially save this data source in the data set in a session variable here for future use here. Finally, I'm going to auto-generate the columns and call the data bind and set visible equal to true, and I'm done. So just some housekeeping over here. But the key function here is the call custom stored procedure for grid view that will call the stored procedure, retrieve the values, and return that as a data source that's going to be used over here. I'm going to save that. Next function that I need to write, of course, is the call custom stored procedure, and that's kind of the most important one, and that's kind of the last function, and then we'll be able to run it basically over here. Actually, there's one more function, which is page index changing. We'll just paste it over here. All the page index changing does basically is that it reads the next set of records using the value that is stored in the session variable, and then essentially displays the next record. I'm not going to go through a whole lot of detail on that. I'll just skip that. Let's focus in on the stored procedure things over here. Let me go ahead and paste this code here, and then I'll explain that to you. I have this split among 3 different slides, so I need to copy that from 3 different slides. And there you have it. Okay, let's go through and look at what this function does here. The call custom stored procedure function basically is going to take a parameter. And what we have is a bunch of advanced functions in base classes that allow me to call a stored procedure and pass its parameter. The first thing that you will see is that we will define a parameter called a stored procedure parameter and call its constructor with the name of the parameter, in this case P country, the value of that parameter, in this case the selected value from the drop down, because if the user selects, let's say, United States, that's the value that I want to specify, and then I have to also specify the type of in SQL Server, which is in this case it's a varchar, and then specify whether it's an input or output parameter. So I've just simply specified the parameter that we're going to use. I create a parameter list in step 2 and specify that as the first parameter. If I have additional parameter, then obviously I'll need to create a couple more parameters and pass that. Then I define a stored procedure, and I essentially call its constructor. Here is the name of the database key that is specified in your web.config file. So if you look at your web.config file, you will see that there is a, oops, well, always happens, Murphy strikes, so I apologize for that. Let me go ahead and restart and see whether we can do this. Okay. So in the case of the web.config, I have a key that is specified, which is the name of the database. So you see where it's database Northwind1, specifies that it's on my machine basically, and it uses a trusted connection. So this is the key of the data. If you have multiple databases, they will be listed here. This is just that identifies the particular database here. So I'm going to go back to the code over here, and if you look at the parameters when I'm defining a new stored procedure, specify the key of the database, name of the stored procedure, and what my parameter list is. So that's how simple it is for you to define that. And then finally, I call the run method. And if the run method is successful, then I return the data set. Otherwise, I return nothing. That's all I really need to do in order to call a stored procedure. I specify the parameters in step 1. I specify the parameter list, create the stored procedure object, and then call the run method basically. And this will allow me to basically do that. So now I'm going to go ahead and build it and run it. And let me run it. By default, it will come up to whatever my default page is, and the default page is typically like the show categories page or so. I'll need to change it to my page, and then display the there you have it. By default, when the first time the page is displayed, there is no record that is there are no records that are displayed. But if I go ahead and choose a particular country, then it's going to display the records from that country. So if I change it to Finland, it's going to display that. Mexico, it's going to display that, and so on. Now my guess is that, let's see if any of the countries have. Looks like most. There you go. It shows me the paging control over here. So it shows me 10 records. If I click on page 2. It's displaying me the next page over here. So that's how easy it is for me to actually define my own stored procedure and make a call to the stored procedure and display that on a page. Now, of course, I can enhance the screen by putting menus and footers and headers and so on as I choose to. Up to me that I can do that. But hopefully, this will give you enough of a basic idea in order to go through and define your own stored procedure.